Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video from Radio 1.
Well, it is World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October this weekend, and never has the human race been impacted this adversely with respect to our mental wellness. Well, the world was locked down, lives and livelihoods upended, social norms changed forever. Our health of our frontline workers, students, people living at home, those with pre-existing mental health conditions have been particularly affected. So we connect with Arushi Sethi today. She's a millennial entrepreneur based out of Mumbai City and who is the co-founder of Trijog, which is a progressive platform for mental health care and holistic wellness. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us here, Erica.
Well, you know, your story began as a survivor of the Nepal earthquake in 2015, waking up in the middle of it. You know, take us back to how that kind of triggered this whole journey with Trijog.
So I believe anything, right, which is a life or death experience, or anything which causes us a complete moment of silence in our lives, makes us think inwards. And that's what happened. Through all of the destruction and the noise that was being created and the innumerable people who were losing their lives, there was a complete moment of silence within me. We got rescued by the C-180 Hercules jet, the Indian Army fighter plane, 132 aftershocks, and 48 hours later, I still remember how we were picked up by the Indian Army. It was then on the way back when they spoke about safety and us being safe with them, did my tryst with anxiety begin, because I began to understand what does safety even mean. And the core of it is that every human being just wants to feel and be safe, whether it is in our surroundings, in our society, with ourselves, with the people we interact with. And I could not give a name to that founding feeling that was going on in my heart on the way back, knowing that I was alive and I was going to be safe. I had my best friend, partner, mentor, mother, who has been a pioneer in the space of mental health for the last 37 years now, to be by my side and help me understand that what I was going through was anxiety. And I did start suffering through my bouts of PTSD as well, because of the trauma that we had just experienced and had to live through. It was in that moment that I realized that I have her support through and through. But what about the millions of us who are suffering in silence? How do we access or even identify our feelings? 7 years back, nobody was talking about it the way we're doing now. Mm-hmm. It was during that time, I come from the media background myself, but I chose to take the entrepreneurial beacon forward, asked her if she would give me her knowledge and if we could take this knowledge and make sure that we bring world-class accessibility into the mental health sector. Right. We have been and become the first runners for mental health in the country, amongst the top 3 right now. And I think, Erica, for me, the entire idea was that there are 2 things that I could have done. I could take my anxiety and let it be the end of me, or I could have taken it and made sure it's the light for millions of others. Right. And I think option 2 was what we went for. And here we are today, making the world a better place.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. Thank you for that share. So, you know, going through the past 18 months or so, in your experience, what's been the key mental health challenges faced by the population in general and Gen Z in particular?
All right. So before we come to the problem, let's understand why are we facing the problem. All right. So we'll do why, what, and then how can we do something about what we all are facing. Why? It is the first time in life that we have been told to go inwards. Space became constricted. And when you cannot go outside, you go in on the inside. So your feelings become real. A lot of Gen Z has been experiencing increased amount of anxieties because they did not have answers to any of their questions or thoughts. And secondly, we were left with for so much time with our own thoughts. Anxiety is related to self-worth, success, job security, caregiving responsibilities. We don't understand. We only feel older people have caregiving responsibilities, but the young guns also do. Absolutely. A lot of fear and restlessness about the today because of having no roadmap whatsoever with the uncertainty of tomorrow. That brought in waves of a lot of depressed moods that we started noticing with the data that we have gathered in the last 18 months. Sleep issues were heavily were heavily affected because of two things. One in overdrive and the second in underdrive. When you don't know what to do, you kind of almost want to do all of it or stop and, not know what to do.
Right.
We need to realize that any extreme of a paradigm that we hit is going to create some amount of emotional irregulation. And because of the heightened emotional irregulation that uncertainty brought about, top three would be anxiety, sleep, depressed moods that have been experienced by our generation. Yeah.
Right. So, as a mental health advocate, how is Trijog and how are you, helping to remove the stigma around it, particularly with the Indian population, particularly with the older Indian population? Because I believe the younger generation, Gen Z, Gen Xers, all of that, are more, approachable and acceptable of getting help when they have mental health issues. So, how are you helping to remove that stigma?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. So I feel whenever we're trying to change something, change happens through a prolonged journey of consistent perseverance and immense amount of resilience. And we need to constantly be doing things to create that global change. In 2020, we took a decision as an organization to go completely virtual so that we could even provide our services to the global sector. So Trijog transformed overnight completely virtually. We were able to help out pan India and globally during this time. I'd like to mention that in the first month of the pandemic, for the entire month, all of our services went pro bono for anybody calling in to access help. We flagged, we do number of campaigns on a national and global level, which is one to eradicate definitely the stigma around mental health, but also to increase the spirit of collaboration and participation. We need all of our stakeholders to be involved into these things. Like, look at you, yourself today. You have something called going mental. We need all of us to be recognizing it. So what our campaigns drive is, I'll share a few with you. We started right back in 2015, where we did stand up to, stamp out the stigma with Malini. We had about 30 faces join us for that campaign. So it was a Trijog and Miss Malini initiative. We then went on to do the Antidote India tour, where we went to about 7 cities, did road shows, opened up conversations and called them moments. And that was the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced, having 1,000 to 2,000 people just wanting to share and talk about their feelings. And then Trijog always was there to give the right access to mental health care. So as an advocate, I think it's very important to spread awareness. But what about after the awareness? What about the accessibility? Where can they get the right quality of help? So that is what Trijog, the service end of it was so important to build in a strong way.
Right.
We then moved on to doing, in 2019, I began to represent India on the board of the World Federation for Mental Health. It was the first time in 68 years India is getting global representation. We are the arms to the WHO and the UNICEF. And in 2020, I became the lead for World Mental Health Day globally.
Okay.
And we did the first of its kind virtual global festival, which touched over 10 million lives. And we collaborated with over 60 world partners, including Harvard Mental Health, the Works Mental Health America, all of Fortis India, all of the organizations we see. So collaboration, communication, integration is what will take us forward. And just one more thing. Looking at us, looking at our own mental health and our mind as a part of us. So empowering ourselves so that we are more informed to what is happening within us. So if we see anybody around us, we can begin to listen and then move towards transformation. That has been our journey. Today, we have created an impact in over 70 million lives as we speak. And I hope upwards, onwards, and yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Right. I'm going to pick up on that last bit where you spoke about, extending your help to everybody, not limiting to, a certain demographic, but to everybody. But importantly, in your experience and what Trijog does, what are the signs that we should be asking for professional help in the first place? Because oftentimes we think, oh my God, I'm just feeling a little bit off today, but not identifying it as, hey, maybe it's a trigger point. Maybe I need to address this and get professional help.
Absolutely. Our overlying concerns are just the concerns, right? Like we label them as anxiety, sleep concerns, restlessness, fears, but they all are coming down from triggers. And it is very important as individuals to map these triggers. So what can these triggers be? And what is it that we should be watching out for? If we're feeling any particular feeling for a prolonged moment of time, and you refer to it as an unhelpful feeling, it is restricting you, coming in your way of you doing something that you were still passionate about or otherwise fond of. That is the first sign. We need to identify any prolonged irregulation in the mood is the first sign to pick up that we need to talk to a professional. Let us understand that mental health comes on a spectrum. You can have excellent mental health, you can have very good mental health, you can have okay mental health, you can have poor mental health, you can have concerning mental health, and then there is the severe bend of mental health. We believe that only when it is severe, you need to be talking to professionals. We need to change that, guys. If you have a mind, you have mental health. That means even today, without any problem or issue or concern, we say, agar problem hai, to go to a mental health professional. In the case you want to figure out your own thoughts, your patterns, understand the way your mind and body works, take therapy. Take therapy to become a better version of yourself, because therapy will build in such a level of empathy into you. So you will understand not only why you are feeling what you're feeling, but why another person feels the same way. So you will see a difference between your reactions turning into responses.
Right.
The second sign that I think a lot of us should look out for: how are our responses turning to reactions? Are they extremely heightened? Almost most times, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is an increased frequency of shouting, outbursts, that means you're not feeling at peace with yourself. Do take help for that. Then let's come to a few more severe signs. Dips in motivation for an extreme prolonged period of time. But even if you're not feeling so good for 4 days, pick up the phone, get it out. I want to ask all of our listeners a question here today. Do we have a shower every day? Hopefully all of us do.
I'm not going to answer that. No, I'm kidding. Yes,
so
we
Erica,
do.
have you had a shower today?
Well, sometimes twice, Arushi.
Wow. So if that is how we are cleansing our physical body every day, how are we cleansing our mind? We need to pick up the phone and talk to trained professionals who have the scientific understanding and knowledge to, one, be there, understand active listening, and second, help you understand your thoughts better. If you want to be a better version of yourself today, pick up the phone and speak to us at Trijog or any of the wonderful people out there who are providing the right quality to therapy.
Okay, important, right quality of therapy. I want to bring it to a current issue, which is, related to an ongoing scenario in the media today: substance abuse. It's all in the news today, and not restricted, let me just say, to just teens or young adults experimenting with, say, party drugs, but actually, in honest truth, across all demographics and with harder stuff. Is this related to mental health? Is it, or is it just
Completely.
Okay, can you sort of flesh it out a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So one is it that we attach ourselves to something. It is one when we have an affinity towards it. But what we need to realize here: are we trying to sabotage? Are we trying to cover and push other things under the rug? And has substance abuse become a coping mechanism to your everyday reality? Well, that is what we need to talk about. I think as a generation, why? So let's cover it sector by sector. Why do we find so much substance abuse in adults? It's because we were never taught how to firstly process our feelings, accept them, acknowledge them. So so we needed a still way to cope with them. So our best coping mechanism went to something that could help us get away from the reality of the present moment, so we didn't need to think about them. Now, when you don't think about the thoughts that are troubling you, or your emotions, or your fears, or your feelings, or your relationships, or your goals, or your success, what happens? What happens, right?
Okay.
What happens when you don't think about them? They start eating you up. They ferment inside you. And what does fermentation lead to? A complete shutdown and wanting to latch on to substances. Now let's change from substance abuse to substance use. If we were taught how to use substance responsibly when we were younger, as social interactions, not when you're just alone and you want to, have that substance to make you disconnect from your reality, is the question we need to be asking. So I feel the solution to this is, how connected are we to ourselves, firstly?
Right.
And secondly, are we using the substance appropriately, or is it inappropriate when it becomes substance abuse? I'd like to also share with everybody, a lot of us who have abused substance or could have been caught in the middle of this, you need to be there for yourself first and ask yourself, why am I feeling so detached from my one self that I need to latch on to something else to enter an alternate reality?
Right.
Is it actually affecting me in the short term or the long term? It may make you feel great, but that is your perception of greatness in the short term. Wake
Right.
up, understand what are the long term effects. It could cost you your entire being. We've got one life. Let's make it worth it, or at least make it last.
Oh, absolutely. Well said. Coming to the family unit, what regular everyday practices can one carry on or carry through, or exercises that we can do as a family unit to ensure that we have, good mental health within the family? Because it's been very rough the past 18 months or so for everybody.
Erica, I think that's extremely well said. The first thing as family units we need to begin with and begin on to is conversation. We need to begin checking in with everybody at home. And the narrative needs to change around versus, how are you doing today, to how are you feeling today? How are you feeling this morning? We need to weave mental health and emotional well-being over everything into our everyday conversations. So number one. And the second thing we need to be doing as self and a family is four things for a good balance for our emotional hygiene:
Right.
physical, spiritual, social, and very importantly, emotional. What is that one activity that you're doing for these under these four umbrellas every day? Physically, have you jumped enough today so that your endorphins have been released? Have you done enough? Why do we say so? 10 minutes of any exercise of your choice, but begin doing it. Emotional health. What is it that you have done for your emotional immunity today? Have you read something that was uplifting? Have you listened to your favorite song? Have you taken a minute to appreciate your cup of tea or coffee? Have you
Right.
looked up into the sky and wondered and thanked the breath for being alive?
Yes.
Spiritually, have you given 10 minutes to closing your eyes and going inwards? We need to do that every single day. And socially, have you checked in on a loved one? Have you asked them, how are you feeling today?
Right.
Have you laughed today? Have you smiled today? And
Yeah.
if not, make sure you start pausing to do that and getting your whole family to doing so as well. Conversation, communication, and education will change this world and is already beginning to.
Okay. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Let's move into corporates. How can mental wellness be part of our daily work ethic? I think corporates are taking cognizance of the fact that it's very important for the overall productivity of their employees. But do you have any concrete tips that, something that they could do in terms of a work ethic or habit or routine?
Absolutely. So I feel like corporates definitely are moving towards emotional health and emotional health care. We work with a lot of prestigious brands across the country and globally for the emotional well-being of their employees. So the first thing, I think every corporate should make it mandatory as a part of their onboarding and inductions to have a mental health service provider in place, so that their employees know that our emotional well-being is a priority to them. When they get onboarded into the companies, they should make it mandatory that they just speak to a counselor so they understand and they begin normalizing therapy as a lifestyle. Check-ins should be made mandatory, monthly check-ins on all of the employees. Of course, the ones that are already taking therapy and have become empowered continue to take their sessions. Secondly, I feel like they need to introduce mental health days off as policies. It should become normal to say, hey, I'm taking an off for my emotional health. And you don't need to be questioned as to why, what happened. It needs to be as clear as
Yeah.
I got a fracture. Nobody will ask you, oh, why is the bone hurt? How much is the
Yeah.
bone hurting?
Right.
Right. And we don't need to be answerable to anybody for our emotional health.
That's
so
right.
secondly, taking mental day health off.
Yeah. I like that. MYOB, please. Mind your own business. Yeah.
Yes. I feel thirdly, care packages for employees that are around emotional well-being. Now, when I say care packages, they could involve therapy. They could also involve so many beautiful self-care things, right? Everything is a part of mental health. So self-care, we could do lovely packages that make us inculcate a habit of first looking after of ourselves.
Right.
Automatically, that uplifts your mental well-being. So I think these three things would be of prime importance. Fourthly, Erica, this is very important that we start including emotional hygiene into our trainings and organization development and behavior, building confidence, communication skills, self-worth and self-image, managing the mind, acing anxiety and adapting to flexibility, moving with mental agility, onboarding during into the virtual world. All of this is related to our mind because it is not always what you do, but how you do it. So our corporates need to start educating the large corporate cohort into emotional hygiene. And yes, these are the 4 ways we can do it.
Fantastic. So this year's slogan is mental health in an unequal world, right? And in India, with the divides widening, we're saying between rich and poor, the digital divide more so, how can we make mental health wellness accessible to all?
Thank you so much for that question, Erica. Yes, this year's theme, as we released it, has been mental health in an unequal world. Let us understand why. Inequality has been prevalent since before mankind. I think inequality is the first pandemic that we need to deal with, mental health being the second, and the third, the virus that we are faced with. Inequality and this year's theme is driving everybody, all collaborators, towards coming together for envisioning a world with equal mental health care and accessibility for all. It is very important, this year's theme, because we see mental health separated as a separate entity than us. We need to first equalize with mental health on a self level, and secondly, start championing equality through conversation, collaboration, equality on all levels. Are our governments investing into our mental health? If we are 7 billion of us, where is the provision for our mind? Because I'm sure we all have one thing in common, irrespective of all of the inequalities of gender, caste, creed, race, demography, socioeconomic, age, it is our mind. What is the government doing to invest into the mind? Coming to the corporate sector, how are we impacting larger change of the mind? Coming to policies, advocates, larger bodies like, let's look at the entertainment and film industry. How are we equalizing all of our contribution into mental health? Only when we equalize our contribution and realizing will we move from mental health in an unequal world to championing equality for mental health.
Right.
I would also like to take this opportunity to share with all of our listeners, if you're with us here this evening, log on to worldmentalhealthday.com, WHMD.com. Participate with us. Voices that matter. We will be taking forward all of your stories on the global campaign. Use the equality campaign filter on Instagram to show your support towards mental health care. And on 9th and 10th October, we're showcasing the Youth Conclave, wherein we're representing 30 countries and delegates from all of these 30 countries sharing their motto, their message, their solutions around this year's theme. Please join us there. We hope you'll enjoy the celebrations this year. And let's make World Mental Health Day a day for us every day and rather every moment.
Absolutely. Well said. And on that very positive note, thank you so much for checking in with us and joining us. Rest assured, I shall be in touch with you very soon. Thank you as always.
Thank you so much, Erica. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling absolutely great now that we've chatted. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel a beautiful sunshine on my head and a sense of contentment. Thank you for adding to my morning on a very personal note. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a video from Radio 1.